pleasure today to be talking with Sander van Geffen. Sander is the Global Director Business Transformation for Stolt Tankers. Stolt Tankers operates the world's largest fleet of chemical parcel tankers for bulk liquid chemicals, edible oils, acids, and clean petroleum products. Join me as we explore the challenges of putting in place CI across ocean-going vessels and ship management teams who must first and foremost keep the crew safe, and how Stolt's CI at Sea program addresses these challenges. Sander, welcome to Leaders in CI podcast.
Thank you, Maureen, for this great introduction.
It's lovely to have you with us. So what I'd like to do to start with is, could you please briefly introduce yourself and give us a look into your background?
Yeah, of course, no problem. So my name is Sander van Geffen, and I work for Stolt Tankers. Indeed, one of, I would say, the biggest chemical parcel tankers. So I studied physics years ago, joined some consulting companies, really learned the crux of consulting at Capgemini, where I also started my CI career with my green belt certification, actually, a long time ago. And then via some other companies like ING and the flower auction, I actually ended up with the Kaizen Institute also. And then I just couldn't resist the challenges that Stolt Tankers faced, and to keep it in the maritime business, I jumped ships and now working for 4.5 years for Stolt Tankers.
4.5 years already. Okay. Yes. And what is your role there, your responsibilities? What would a day-to-day for you look like?
Yeah, so my official title is I'm the Global Director of Business Transformation. And basically I'm responsible for the execution of our strategic transformation programs in all the aspects of the company, commercially as well as operational. And of course, I'm responsible for all our continuous improvement activities, the program that we have onshore and offshore to establish this mindset in our company. And so most of the time I'm actually spending on coaching of the CI experts, of the coaching of the black belts in the team. And I also try to spend as much time as possible on the Gamba, travel now and then to our other offices in Manila, Singapore, and Houston, and also try to spend some time on ships to really see how things are going. But that's also a bit of a challenge. It's always difficult to find the time for that, and I know I'm not the only one struggling with that.
I can quite imagine. So we'll be talking about this Gamba at Sea a little bit later, but maybe you can start just by helping us understand the CI journey for Stolt, right? It kicked off during the COVID pandemic, didn't it? So that must have been an additional set of challenges on top of the challenges we all know are there.
Yeah, definitely. So indeed, it was actually 1 week after I joined Stolt Tankers that the whole world went into a full lockdown. So it was the worst possible timing to join a new company, and also then to have the assignment to start a cultural change in a company that I didn't know, in an industry I didn't know, with no team. So I was really looking in the mirror and thought, how are we going to deal with this?
That gets into.
Yeah. So by then I was still, and also there I was not the only one, naive. And I thought, well, just a couple of months and we will go back to normal. Well, now we know that went pretty different. And so in that time, what we did is that at Stolt Tankers, we sent all the consultants back home to prepare for possible difficult times to come. And we had this value creation program that was to be managed by the Boston Consulting Group. And then I raised my hand and said, well, let me pick this up while we wait for COVID to calm down, and then we will start with the cultural transformation. So it started as more, let's say, a way to deal with the situation. But in the end, it actually worked pretty well, because in picking up the value creation program, I, of course, already introduced some of the CI methods, such as the A3 thinking, having some solid governance around it, the root cause analysis, etc. And after a couple of years of struggle, they now started to realize the value of this program. And this gave the proof to the company that CI is actually working and it can actually help to make the business better. And this gave a lot of energy around the whole topic of CI, and was basically the start of what we are currently doing with GI. And now we are doing the full package with strategic management, breakthrough improvements, and daily management, all backed up with solid training and coaching.
So, that's really neat what you describe, because it's the true core of who we are as business improvement people. We run into an unexpected situation, we problem solve, and we turn it to our advantage.
Yes, definitely. It was not all by design, I have to admit.
No,
But in the
we
end,
also experiment and learn, right? We also
exactly,
experiment and learn. Yes.
exactly.
Right. So then CI has become very important for Stolt. Was it already important? How does it tie into Stolt's ambitions and strategy?
Yeah, it's a good question. So when I started at Stolt, there was basically no CI at all. And it started with a new president that joined the company. He came from Maersk and was used also to the CI way of thinking. And he quite immediately realized that CI is what the company would help to move along. Not only to become more efficient, but also to become more agile in his operations. I mean, shipping is a pretty conservative industry, and also I think it's fair to say that Stolt Tankers was not really used to coping with a lot of change. And if I now look, CI is basically at the core of who we are and what we do. We have this strategy picture that visualizes our strategy with also a ship in that picture, and CI is basically positioned in the engine of that vessel.
Ah,
And I think that really well illustrates that CI is really also seen as part of the engine that drives our strategy and that drives the success of our company, enables the people to be successful in the company. And what I really like is that for us at Stolt, CI is not just a bunch of tools and methods. It is really a cultural change that fits our long-term strategy to change the way of working that we have and to really change how we operate in our business. And CI is facilitating that.
so a true enabler.
It's a true enabler, fully backed with the support of the senior leadership. Yes.
Very nice, very nice. Now, I understand that, it's not only in the office, but you do implement CI on board of your vessels for your seafarers, right?
True.
CI at sea. What's the ultimate goal of this program?
Yeah, so the CI at Sea program operates next to the CI at Shore program. So they both basically are the entire CI transformation that we are currently in with Stolt Tankers. And the goal of CI at Sea is actually pretty similar to the goal of our Shore program of CI. It's just the approach is pretty different because the whole dynamics on sea is pretty different than it is on shore. So I would say in one sentence that the goal of the CI at Sea program is to bring the CI mindset of doing a little bit better every day in the DNA of our seafarers. So our slogan is also be better every day. That's how we communicate it and how we bring it to our vessels.
Right.
A- and that is also pretty important because our seafarers are excellent in firefighting. If something pops up, they are so brilliant in solving it. And that's also very important. I mean, just imagine if a ship cannot sail for a day, we will lose around $30,000 every
Okay.
day.
Okay.
Um,
Every ship.
so every
Okay.
ship. So just imagine. So this firefighting capability is very important. What we want to add on this is when the fire is out, that we go back to the problem, find the root cause, and make sure the problem never ever pops up again.
Yeah.
And this is basically how we drive our program. I truly believe that we are the best chemical shipment company today. The point is we also want to ensure we are still the best shipping company tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. And
It's
that's where
harder.
we're working.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And also just put it in perspective, we have onshore, we have around 400, 450 people employed. But on our vessels, we have over 4,500 seafarers.
I, yeah.
So And if I then think about 4,500 seafarers that are all simultaneously improving the way we work, sharing best practices, and every day think how we can do a little bit better, the impact is transformative. The impact will be huge of this program.
Yeah, yeah, that's great when you can mobilize those big numbers and all the same way, thinking all the same way. That's
True.
fantastic.
I mean, they have the ideas.
Yeah.
And what we basically do with this program is provide a platform and an infrastructure so we can capitalize on it. And basically, we are giving the crew a voice and a method to also work on the ideas they're already having.
Okay. So you were saying, indeed, because of the different dynamics of onshore and offshore, that the goals are the same, but the way you do it at sea is different, right? So can you give a little bit more details on that, on how you actually address this?
Yes, this is very much true. It is very different compared to all the other companies I worked for and all the other CI deployments I was involved in. And I mean, we are, as far as I know, we are the only ship owner that is currently really bringing the CI mindset to our seafarers. I mean, of course, there are a lot of ship owners that apply lean in their processes, and when the ship is involved somewhere in that process, they will also instruct the ship and involve the ship in that. But I believe we are going one step further than that by really bringing the CI mindset and a culture on board of our ships, not just as one element of a bigger process, but also in the core of how they operate on board of those vessels. And the reason I understand the reason why we are probably the first one doing this, given all the challenges that we also faced. It's not a walk in the park. Let me share a few of them. So first of all, it's the team composition. So if you work in a factory or in an office, you work with a team, and of course there might be somebody might leave the team and somebody new might enter the team, but in basis the team is stable and you can build upon that. In shipping, this is very different. If you now go to a ship, you have a crew of let's say 20 people. If you go 2 or 3 months later, half that crew is probably replaced by a new crew.
Okay.
So there is no stable team. And in
Okay.
the beginning, we focused on the ships. So we trained the ship. And then a few months later, we learned that 50% of the crew was not trained anymore. And also for the crew members, they basically live in two realities at the same time. Now they might work on a ship where CI is being deployed and is part of the CI at sea program. And a month later, they might be allocated to a ship that's not yet part of the program. And they might be in an environment where CI is not even known as a terminology. And then how do you keep those people engaged? And how do you make sure that then at a later stage, they will be involved again? So this is something we really had to learn, and we are still learning, by the way. And also, if you're working with a ship, and then the new crew, part of the new crew is being assigned to that ship. How do you make sure that you then also bring those people up to speed? And the PDCAs that they are doing, they were not involved in the beginning, in the start. So how do you involve them and make them also feel, let's say, this is our PDCA and we are together in making this improvement? That are
Yes. Yes. You really have to onboard them, right?
You really have to onboard them. And
Yeah.
there it comes in the second challenge that I can share, because the face-to-face contact is very difficult.
Yeah.
Um, when the ships is in the port, they have rush hour. They are loading, unloading the cargoes, the ship inspections come on board, etc. So it's really, really busy. And then we have the time, but they don't have the time. And then when they leave port, then they have time. But then
Yeah.
how do we get to the ship? Then they are sailing on the Atlantic. So the lack of face-to-face contact is also an issue. And then maybe the last one is then the hierarchical differences that you have on board compared to a normal office or factory. The hierarchy is much more strong and more strict on board of a ship, and for a reason. I mean, if something goes wrong or there is an issue, there is no room for democracy. You have to rely on each other, that everybody knows what to do, you follow instructions, and then the whole machine solves the issue instantly, and that works really good. But in calmer times, sometimes, and especially when you're deploying a CI mindset, a more coaching leadership style, is a bit more effective. And also there, it's really a challenge, and with questions like how can we create this more coaching leadership culture on board of the vessels, and how can we help to create a safe environment where crew members that might be used to execute orders basically are stimulated to think for themselves and come up with ideas and come up with issues, just to name a few of those challenges.
Absolutely. So it's clear that you have unique challenges when it comes to CI. Also, in my mind, I see the overriding focus on safety. As you mentioned yourself, the practicalities surrounding gamba walks, communications technology when out in the ocean. I imagine you lose your team's link quite often. So how do you handle those? How do you integrate? How can you be successful with CI in that environment?
Yeah, it's a good question. And let's start with safety, because it always starts with safety. Safety is it's above everything in a company, above CI, above profit. I mean, if there is no safety, there is no business basically. And this also has quite an impact on our CI journey. If you find improvements, you cannot just execute them. Everything has to be checked on whether it's a safety component. And there was also a lot of regulations. Ship classification societies also have a lot of regulations on how things should be deployed on board of our vessels. And if we think that we want to do it differently, you have also to get in touch with that and deal with that, which can significantly delay also implementing improvements. On the other hand, it also helps. So of course, CI also helps to improve the safety. A lot of the PDCAs that the seafarers are working on is not to make more profit or make the ship more efficient, but is also to make the ships more safe. And in the whole safety mindset of our seafarers, they were already used to the 5 times why. If something went wrong, that
Yeah.
was already a known practice. So we could build upon that and basically stimulate them to expand that not only to safety incidents, but also to other problem-solving activities on board. So safety is definitely an important element for sure. Yeah, then another one is the training, I would say. And
Yeah.
that links a little bit to what I already mentioned
Yeah.
with the difficulty of face-to-face contact and the changing crew, so that you have constantly partly new crew on board. And then, I mean, the crew is one, but what if the captain is changing and there's a new captain which might have a different opinion on CI? That has a huge impact on the dynamics. And so we basically went into a remote working method. So when the ship was sailing at a time, we established an internet connection, and luckily nowadays we have reasonable internet connections
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
satellites.
Okay.
It was really pretty exciting when I had my first training session with a crew that was sailing on the Atlantic. And to train them about the basic concepts of CI. But also there, it is difficult. They travel through the time zones, so you might
All right.
stand up in the middle of the night to have a convenient time for them to be changed. Things on the ship are very unpredictable. So when you think you have a meeting, let's say about 7 a.m. in the evening or 7 p.m. in the evening, to train them, nobody shows up because there was an issue with the engine and they had to work on it, for example. So also this had a lot of issues. I still remember my own first Gamba walk. I joined the ship and sailed from Rotterdam to Antwerp with them. It was planned to be a 1.5 day trip, which turned out to be a 3-day trip because of changing schedules, new customers that wanted additional cargo, so another port or another berth to be done, etc. And this, I think, is very typical for shipping. Nothing is stable and it changes constantly. So for that reason, we more or less now moved to a full e-learning approach. But also that is not ideal. And I have serious doubts whether a full e-learning approach is sufficient to really bring across the message and the ideas of CI to the crew members. So we are still experimenting and still finding out what's the best answer to this one. But it's definitely more challenging.
Yeah, definitely more challenging. I can see where e-learning is always very strong when you're talking about the more technical parts of CI, how
True.
do you apply, etc. But it's the cultural part and the mindset that I imagine you're struggling with. Yeah.
Yeah, that is definitely the difficult part, and that also feeds into coaching. E-learning, okay, you can do e-learning for training, but you cannot do e-coaching or something like that. And so, because we cannot really coach on the Gemba, how it now works is that we see the results of the work that they do on board of their ships, and you respond on that and provide with feedback, or actually the superintendents do that. But you cannot really see how they came to the results, so you cannot coach in action.
Great.
And this is also a real issue when you deploy this mindset on board of vessels, for example, that it's really output focused, and we are still thinking and experimenting also in how we can get closer to the team so that we can also see them in action and then provide feedback on the spot as well.
Is that because you're not seeing everything that you would like to see at the moment in this time of the journey, that you're still searching? You're getting good results, right?
Yes, that is true. So I think the results are good. But what I cannot see in the outcome, for example, was it just the captain in his cabin on an
Ah,
evening
yes.
filling out a template
Ah,
with his
yes.
own great ideas? Or did he involve the whole crew? And did he have a bit of a workshop kind of setting, or maybe part of the crew? And did they already had the countermeasure in their mind and reversed engineered basically the template? Or did they really go from the beginning to the end? And did the root cause analysis really spark the ideas for the countermeasures, for example?
So it's really
That's
into the sustainability also that's going to be problematic. So what do you, Sander, bring to the table to overcome these challenges, to address this, to ignite and sustain this willingness to change?
yeah. So first of all, we don't have all the answers here. We are still looking and experimenting and finding out what works best. But what I did learn so far, the key element here is change management. And the change of behavior of people. And so in my view, the behavior of people is basically driven by three elements. It's the willingness to behave differently, which is basically the intrinsic motivation, which you can work on with things like a change story, show them the benefits, and etc. The second one is the ability to show different behavior. And for that, we are working with training and coaching and still finding our best way. We also have some tools and templates, for example, that they can use to facilitate the PDCA thinking. And the last one is the need to behave differently, which is basically the extrinsic motivation. Um, and this is being put in place by KPI steering, the carrot and the stick, role modeling, etc. So we are on all those three elements, we are experimenting and trying to find out what works best. And I can share a few of our insights with you. So one of them is, for example, really keep it small. When we initially started, um, we were too ambitious, I think. And there's also a bit of my own pitfall. I'm getting excited and I see all the potential out there. And then, oh yeah, we can do this and we can do that and maybe combine it this way. But then, especially if you're so limited with your training options, it's better, I've learned, to really focus it to a single element, really make that part of the DNA of the people and focus on that. And for that, in the end, we focused on PDCA. Pick up one of the problems. So if something breaks down, you replace it. Okay, that can happen. If it breaks down again, you replace it again. But then why did it break down? Why did it break down again? And then go to the PDCA cycle, find the root causes, and that's where it's all focused about.
Extreme focus. Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Second one, I would say, really make it relevant for them.
Yeah.
So CI at sea, initially, I think it was a bit perceived by the people as another task from shore that they got to do. Oh yeah, they found something new. They invented something new again. Okay, let's do it, tick in the box, and we can get on with our work. And so I learned that we have to explain and show them how it can actually help them, for example, to prevent reoccurring breakdowns. I mean, also in a ship, they don't like the breakdowns for sure. It's a lot of hassle and work and delays, etc. And so for that, we did a lot of activities also to collect the voice of the customer. So what's really helping you? A couple of weeks back, I spent some time in Manila. A lot of our seafarers come from the Philippines. And I had a CI lunch with captains and chief engineers, and I learned a lot of their insights and how they could benefit from CI at sea that we can feed into our change story and bring to other vessels then. So make it relevant, I think, is the second one that's really helping there. Yeah, and then of course we put extra effort in capability building to being able. So with the e-learnings and the we also do the ship visits. It's difficult because it's a rush hour in port, but we still try to do that. And also going to conferences. We have regular safety conferences and master conferences. So we try to be there, or people from the business are there to talk about CI at sea, listen to what is working well and what can be improved. And the latest experiment we are doing, I'm really excited about it. We have, since this week actually, we have an additional member as an experiment for 2 months, which I call the CI captain. And
CI
this is
captain.
the CI captain. So this
Okay.
is a captain. It's actually a captain that I met in my first Gamba walk from Rotterdam to Antwerp. And he
Okay.
now joined the team because he's currently not sailing. So he will be sailing in a couple of months again. And now he's added to the team for 2 months, and he is now visiting ships, and he's actually also going to sail with ships on shorter trips
Hmm.
to be there with the teams and train them on how to do a PDCA. And then he can not just see the outcome, but he can also give feedback and action. And I mean, if a captain is coaching a captain, that has a different impact, in all honesty, than when I'm coaching a captain.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
he's one of the
He's been
boys.
there. He's done it.
He knows, he has the authority, he knows the dynamics, he recognizes the issues. And I've really high expectations of this one. And
Okay.
I mean, we still started a week ago. So in a couple of weeks or a month or what, then I will probably know how it worked out. But it's one of the ways to put more effort in capability building. So the third element. Another one is, I think, what we learned and also put on the table is to focus on the right change agents. When we started with CI at sea, it was one CI expert from my own team that was basically starting it up and also doing the coaching and had a lot of contact with the ships. But I mean, it was a great guy, but he was not a seafarer. He did not recognize and cannot recognize the dynamics and the language and how things go on board of a ship. And we later also realized this is not scalable if you
Right.
want to do 180 ships.
Yeah.
So what we basically did is um, we now basically are operating via the superintendents and the fleet managers. So a superintendent is basically managing, let's say, 4 vessels. So the
Yeah.
captains report to the superintendent, basically, and the superintendent reports to the fleet manager. And especially the superintendent is now instrumental in our deployment. They have regular contact with the ships, and in that contact, they drive the CI at sea deployment. They stimulate starting of PDCAs. When there's a breakdown, they will ask, why not start a PDCA on this one? They will see the results, provide coaching, provide feedback, etc. And we are basically coaching the supers and the fleet managers.
Like a coach
And
to coach, train the trainer model.
Exact 100%. Coach to coach,
Yes.
trainer to trainer. And this
Right.
works so much better. And they are doing a brilliant job there. And I think so focusing on those change agents that made a huge change for the program.
Okay. All right. So
Another
quite a
one,
few insights. You have quite a
yeah, I
few
mean,
insights.
and
Just
then
wanted to summarize for the
reward.
audience. You talked about, making it small and very focused, making it relevant, capability building, change agents, but you have some more to say, I can see.
Yeah, and I think maybe the most important one is rewards and recognition.
Ah, yeah.
To
Ah, yeah.
really give them the recognition when they completed the PDCA. And we have something that's called the Ship of the Year Award. And we made continuous improvement part of that award also. And so when they do a PDCA, they earn points. When they do it in a certain time frame, they get more points. If the PDCA is being deployed also to other vessels, extra points to be deserved, etc. And also, when somebody completes the PDCA, we make sure that the picture of the PDCA team is made and is basically framed on the wall of the ship somewhere in the mess,
Yeah.
so that it
Uh-huh.
basically marks your place. And when you come back in a year or what to the same ship, you can still see, yeah, that was
Let's
me
see.
with this team doing this
That's
PDCA.
nice. That's nice. That's nice. Yes, absolutely. Right. Okay. Now, there's a challenge in having 180 vessels. But the upside is that you also have an opportunity for many, many best practices. And you leverage this opportunity. They do share them, act upon them. How do you and your team trigger this and manage this?
Yeah, this is definitely the idea. I would say we're not there yet, so we are in progress on to accomplish this. But I mean, if you can have an improvement on a ship that will save you 10,000 K, for example, because you consume a little less fuel, and if you deploy that to 180 ships, you save 1.8 million, and you're
Yeah,
talking about big numbers also.
yeah,
And this is definitely part of the business case also of this whole CIHC mindset. And so we installed a process for this. So basically, when the ship completes the PDCA together with the superintendent, the super discussed this with the fleet manager, and they basically evaluate whether this would be a PDCA that has the potential to be deployed also on other ships to be a best practice. And if the answer is yes, the fleet managers takes it to an assessment meeting with the other fleet managers, and they put all those PDCAs on the table that are basically nominated for fleet-wide deployment, and then they select the most beneficial ones, the ones that are easiest to implement, brings the most benefits, and those are indeed being deployed and also to the other ships. And this is also where CI at sea meets CI at shore, because when that happens and it's a bit more complex, we hand over the initiative to our CI at shore program, because there we have a solid infrastructure with governance in place. And for those initiatives, quite often you need a lot of the onshore teams also to participate, to implement it and make it happen. So we are installing this, and we already have a couple of those PDCAs that are implemented fleet-wide, but this will increase rapidly over the coming period, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, more exciting things. All right. So the fleet managers plays an important role in this.
Definitely, yes. The fleet managers and also the supers, they are instrumental in this.
It's also nice that it brings onshore and offshore together again, at sea
Yes,
and at shore, right? It's
yeah,
also
definitely.
nice.
And what's
Yes.
also really great is that actually yesterday it also went the other way around. So we had a project onshore to turn off unused equipment. It's a bit like
Uh-huh.
switching off the light at home if you're not on the first floor anymore.
Yeah.
Um, but when we are measuring monitoring, we see that we are not reaching the full potential that we thought it would have. And this is a typical behavioral change. And so now the onshore team reached out to us and said, can't we start a PDCA on board of our vessels where they find out what is the reason why this behavioral change is difficult? And maybe they can come up with countermeasures we didn't think about.
Yeah.
And this really excites me, because then you really see of course, it's basically one program we split it because the dynamics is so different. You need a different approach, but then you see those connections over and over, and this will increase also over time. I'm pretty sure.
Yes, that sounds really, really good. That sounds really good. So I'd like to come back to you personally, Sander. You know, you've shared a lot of insights. It's fascinating. But what about yourself? Personal growth. What strengths were you able to leverage? What mistakes have you made?
Oh wow, good question, Maureen. Yeah, so when I joined Stolt Tankers, and also, I mean, with the whole COVID thing that I mentioned in the beginning, for me, this was a complete new industry. I had zero experience. Actually, when I started, I took shipping lessons with some fellow managers just to understand a little bit of the language and the dynamics.
Okay.
This was definitely something that I learned a lot about. It's from all the different industries. I think this is the most particular one with the most different dynamics than compared to what I'm used to in all the others. And already have been in quite some different industries like the flower auction, financial services, ASML, high tech company, etc. So that was a good learning for myself, as well as dealing with all the different cultures. I mean,
Yeah.
in the Netherlands, we already deployed more than 20 different nationalities in the office. We have our offices in big offices in Manila and Singapore and Houston with also their own culture. And then, of course, we have the different culture between onshore and offshore. So, I mean, this was a good lesson in dealing with cultural differences and using those differences for your success, basically. Um, and another one that I think I learned, I think I used to rely a bit more on work to be done by the people in my own team, the CI experts. They're close to you. You know they're well trained, they are qualified, etc. And I think this was for me. This is in this program, we had no choice than to really let that go and really bring it to the business and use, as you mentioned already, rely on the coach to coach and train the trainer. And for me, this was also a process of letting go, basically, but
Yeah.
with enormous success, I must say. They are doing great. And so this really helped a lot. Um, on the mistakes, I wouldn't call them mistakes. I would actually say we learned a lot what didn't work. A bit in line with Thomas Edison, that famous quote of him on the inventing the light bulb. Um, and we had many learnings that did not work. I mean, the classroom training that we started with those changing crews. That at some point we had 3 people in the classroom training because the rest was already trained. And we realized, okay, this is just not working with the dynamics in shipping. Not scalable. So that was one learning. I think also, so when we did the pilot, it's all about experimenting and creativity. And um, and I think that worked great, and we got some good results there. And then we had to scale up to deploy the program to the full fleet. But then we lacked a structure. We kept in this creativity phase, which caused a lot of confusion because then we were changing things and people didn't know what was changed. And we realized, okay, here we have now to bring more structure and have a bit of a different approach. But then I think we overdid it and we brought too much structure. Um, I think we were a bit afraid for our own success. We were really thinking, okay, if 180 ships are going to do PDCAs, how many PDCAs will there be to coach and to assess? I mean, more than 180, 300, 400, 500, I don't know. And we were a bit afraid of that. And then we said, let's make it easy for ourselves. And we give this problem that we select and we give it to the ships. And this is the problem you have to work on, fill out a PDCA and come back to us. But the crew obviously was not engaged. It was not their problem. There was no win for them. They sometimes even didn't recognize it as a problem. So the results were not that good. And then we realized that we just had to take a risk and say, okay, you select your problem you work on. Whatever you feel is an issue, do the PDCA. We will help you, and ever ship a different PDCA. And if that will result in 500 PDCAs, well, I'm happy to have that problem, and let's cross that bridge when we are there.
Yeah. And this also talks all back to keeping it relevant for them, isn't it?
That was a big lesson, definitely. You really have to to align with their issues. If they feel I'm now fed up with this item breaking down for the third time on the same voyage, let's do a PDCA, then they are motivated. If they have to fix a problem they never realized is a problem because we on shore thought is a problem, yeah, that will not energize them.
What about your strengths? How were you able to leverage them? You were saying, you were quite naive. You had to take the lessons, but I do know that you, as you said earlier, you work for Kaizen Institute. You have very strong change management skills.
Yeah, I do think, and I also hope that that I also stimulated this change also with my passion, my enthusiasm, and by challenging and coaching the people involved. And indeed, I've the strong belief that to make a CI deployment successful in no matter what company or what industry, it's maybe 30% about the CI content and it's 70% about change management and taking the people along with it and making sure that the change is actually happening. And this is also where I also focused a lot on with CI at Sea. How can we deploy our change management best practices in a way that it really helps to make the change happen on board of the vessels?
Yes, so you're really able to leverage that. Now, of course, when we talk about change management, we talk about changing mindset, we talk about leaders. And in the words of our late
Yes.
founder, Masaki Imai, the three success factors for any CI journey are top management commitment, top management commitment, top management commitment. And you've explained how CI ties to the strategy and establishes corporate commitment to execute. And you've also talked about the captains. So the captain is the leader. So how do you engage with the captain and his leadership team?
Yeah, I can't agree more with the founder of the Kaizen Institute. It really is about that commitment, 100%. And yeah, so the captains, they quite often are a bit of a personality. They have a lot of autonomy. I mean, they are sailing. Basically, the captain is managing a small factory floating on sea. You could say. Um, and with the hierarchical thing that we also touched upon earlier in this podcast, this is definitely a challenge and also something that you have to spend time on. I mean, sometimes an autocratic leadership style is necessary, um, but when you do CI, it's really crucial to move towards a coaching leadership style and empower the crew and make them come up with the solutions instead of telling them what you think is the great solution, being a captain. Although you might have already great ideas because of your long track record in shipping, obviously. So we do spend a lot of time on this in our discussions with captains. I also hope that our CI captain that I talked about will help here with this. So definitely. And so every ship, of course, has a captain, but also has a chief engineer who is in charge of all the technical elements on board and has a chief mate. And the chief mate is responsible for the cargo, discharging, loading, the HR elements as well. And those three together basically form the ship management team, the SMT. And they must drive CI. If they don't drive it on board on our vessels, then it will simply not help.
Just
And
Peter
of
out.
course, the super will also stimulate the SMT to drive it. The fleet manager will stimulate the super, etc. But that's the whole thing. And so we don't have an enormous lot of contact with the ships ourselves as a CI team. So it is really the supers and the fleet managers that really have the contact, and they drive the deployment, and we are just there to coach them and to help them, because also for them it's new to them. They are not yet all CI experts, so they can use some coaching and some help if they got a PDCA to brainstorm what kind of feedback should I give. Is this a good problem statement? Did they really come to the root causes, etc. And I think there is also the success in the program. The success is in the energy that the fleet manager and the supers put in the program and align with the ship management team.
Okay, and other levels of leadership, right up to the top. What's your way of engaging them in CI?
Yeah, so I'm a lucky man because if I start at the top with our group CEO, Udo Lange, our new CEO, he's a black belt himself. He has track record in DHL and in FedEx, and so I have an amazing sponsor in him.
Yeah.
And if I go to Stolt Tankers, our president was part of the CI journey from the start, and she's also a big ambassador. And I can truly say that basically the whole leadership team of Stolt Tankers is a true ambassador of the CI mindset. And without that, there would not be a program, basically. And also our extended leadership team, so one lower below, their approach and how they drive CI is instrumental in how it lands down in the organization, obviously. And I also here, if I then look specifically to CI at sea, I have also to give a huge compliment to the fleet director who is managing the fleet managers. I could not wish for a better owner. With all the energy and the drive that he puts in this program, you can not only understand his commitment, but if you talk with him, you feel the commitment that it's not optional. This is the way we are going in. And his energy that he put in the program is a huge success factor for the whole CIT program, definitely.
With all of this commitment, having savvy C-level leaders and passionate C-level leaders on this program, all you have to do is to make sure that it delivers, right?
True. Small detail, yes.
A small detail. So is it delivering? You mentioned the business case, there's the multiplication factor. Can you say anything about CI impact at Stolt and how you know it's sustainable?
Yes. So our CI Shore program already exists for some extra years. And there I would say we reached a certain level of maturity. And that's definitely delivering. We are tracking all the benefits. Finance is also involved to make sure that we are realistic in the estimates and in all the measurement monitoring that we are doing. So that's pretty solid and has had great results. I mean, much more than just financial results, but the financial results are easiest to track. And then there are a lot of results in other elements like team engagement, safety, how you approach the market, that are just more difficult to track. So that on CI at shore. For CI at sea, our current focus is on practice. So, and that's what I also find so great about our president. When I had a discussion with her on the financial benefits of CI at sea, she said, I mean, I'm not worried about that now. Make sure that we get the mindset on board, that we get it in the DNA, that they really go into the root causes and solve those problems structurally. And those financial benefits will come without a doubt. And if your president is such a believer, that helps enormously, of course. So, of course, we do track the result of the PDCAs that we do on board where possible. We track basically the lagging KPIs, things like safety, fuel consumption, etc. But then it's always difficult to see what element is the contribution from CI. An old manager said once to me, he said, it's very difficult to split hot and cold water. And that's very much true. So that is really difficult, but where possible, we do it. And also where we go for fleet-wide deployment and we hand over an improvement idea to our onshore program, it's automatically part of this solid tracking mechanism as well. So, but then, I mean, in the end, it is really about the sustainability, have it in the DNA of the people, and make it part of our processes. And I really like this quote of William Bruce Cameron, the author of the book A Dog's Purpose. Some might have read it. And he once said, not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted.
Counted. Yeah.
And that is also true. That is also true.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So you've talked about a lot, and I think it's also clear from your story. You have great top management commitment. You've mentioned the fleet manager and the fleet director a couple of times. I'm really excited about what you're doing with CI at Sea and Stolt. So, maybe we can do this again in a couple of months' time when you have your CI captain more experienced.
Yeah, no
So
problem.
I'd like to wrap up this part of your amazing CI journey at Stolt. And as always, close off our podcast episode with a few quick questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. What do you do to keep body and mind fit?
Oh, it's a good one. I try to work out in the morning at least 3 times a week, and I do some skating and some biking. And for my mind, I like to travel and barbecuing. And also with the barbecuing, the working out is extra important, I can tell you.
And the firefighting.
Also true, yes.
How about a favorite business book?
I'm doing a 2-year training on team and individual coaching, and I read a book, a progress-focused approach from Koen Visser,
Oh, yeah.
and it's an amazing book because he basically leaves alone the whole root cause thinking, and he embraces volatility and variation. And he is focused on to see where was the variation and when was it a little bit better and what can we learn from that and make bigger towards the future. It's a whole different approach that I found really inspiring.
Turning you upside down. Do you have a favorite podcast that you regularly listen to?
Of course, the Leaders in CI podcast, Maureen. But honestly, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. So I also listen a lot to the news oriented radio stations to keep up what's going on in the world.
Yes, okay, understand. But if we do a next podcast, who would you like to be our next podcast guest and why?
I would opt for one of the directors of the company Scania, the big trucks. And the reason for that is in the Netherlands, they are known as one of the companies that is already doing CI for a really, really long time. And I had the privilege once to do a Gemba visit there. And it still burned onto my memory how slow the people worked and how efficient it was. And for me, that was a true revelation that it's not about working harder, it's about working smarter. And that was a great lesson for me. I would love to hear more about one of those directors.
One of those from the inside out. Okay. Now, finally, this is your moment to address our audience. Is there anything we can help you with?
Yes, I mean, I told it already several times. We are still learning, we are experimenting, and we are facing quite some challenges within our CI at Sea program. So if you've listened to this podcast and you got some great ideas or maybe just ideas, I would love to hear more about them. I'm also easy to find on LinkedIn. Reach out to me, let's connect and let's share and discuss. I would love to learn more about it.
I hope that triggers a lot of really good ideas for you, Sander. Okay. So we've come to the end of our podcast. Thank you for your time. It's always a pleasure talking with you, and I'm sure our audience has many insights from your personal journey that you've so openly shared with us.
Thanks a lot, Maureen, for this opportunity. Have a great day.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.